Today for us to start doing some standing and some fighting to back that
Think about like how black men and women have been going through so much. Like when they go through medical procedures, like they go to the hospital. Like if you ever had something happen, and there's so many statistics out there that state that men and women who go to the hospital or go to get hospice care who are people of color stand to suffer a lot more, sometimes death, and sometimes adverse situations and side effects. So with that considered, like we, Africans, black people have lived on the planet for so long, and we didn't have hospitals and doctors and stuff like that. A lot of times it was like a natural science to how we stay healthy, and people knew their bodies. They individually knew how to keep themselves healthy. And we living in America have a diet and a lifestyle that kind of doesn't give you that culture and education on how to be healthy. So like, are we missing out by living in an American culture that doesn't give us like a cultural education on health and makes us depend on doctors and hospitals?
I think that we have the freedom to do that ourselves, right? And it's kind of like our obligation to be able to pass that down to our children and use it for ourselves. Like if we're talking about like natural medicine, like if you're African American, like if you're from the South, your grandma, your auntie, they got natural medicines that they've been using for years. You know what I'm saying? Some of that stuff we don't know because we didn't like take that from our elders. And the 80s was a crazy time. You know what I'm saying? So like a lot of that information wasn't passed down to us. But I think it's important for us to like tap back into that energy. You know what I'm saying? Like what type of roots, what type of like herbs that we can use to help heal ourselves and our children if we get sick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like you said, Nate, does it affect our culture? Of course it does, because we went through a pandemic, and not once did anybody on any news or anything talk about what to do to boost your immune system.
Right.
I mean that's a perfect of how we're suffering. Not, but again, it is our responsibility, and people like I know like I've been saying, everybody, I was on my health before the pandemic, so it's not nothing new. The stuff that we know to take, but nonetheless, it is affecting most people because people are doing what the news tells them to do, and what people saying all they care about is that mask and hand sanitizer. And come on, we know better than that. We know that's not enough.
And it needs to be a holistic health approach because we're the essential workers and we're the ones that have all these diseases that are connected to, like COVID will connect to them and make them worse or make us, make our health worse. And so like we have to try to look at our bodies and what we eat, the exercise and all of that stuff, what I'm saying, if we're trying to like become a healthier group of people, or live the way our ancestors used to live, you know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that one of the lessons that I've personally taken from this is just the importance. It just reminded me, not that I wasn't aware of it before, but it just kind of refocused me on, preventative health and
Right.
a holistic approach, to where you're not treating some illness or ailment, but you're living in a way that to where you're not going to put yourself at risk to become someone that suffers from whatever it is, whether it be high blood pressure or blood sugar, diabetes, all of these different things that adversely affect our people. So, but it's a class thing as well. And one of the things that I think this pandemic has shown is that certain people have been able to kind of insulate themselves from being affected. A lot of our people live in communities where there are food deserts. Access to quality produce and things like that, might not be readily available. So, it's a decision of whether, I'm gonna go to this little fast food joint right down the street that's close, versus going 15 miles out to the suburbs to get, some healthier food choices. And it's a matter of exposure as well. Some of the things that we pass down generation to generation in our community aren't good, and we cling to those things. because that's just what we do to get by, but they're not necessarily healthy. And it's not thinking long term in terms of, you have to educate from an early age. Our children really are who we're supposed to be passing that information to, so that it's not like they get to the point where you have to be considering bypass surgery or, addressing it after the fact.
Because you got people like Dr. Sebi who says that you can heal everything through diet. You got other people, not just Dr. Sebi, but he's a very good reference, because sometimes people would look at him like he was crazy, but he's the type of person who would look at a disease and look at it from a different angle than what most modern science, medical doctors, how they look at it. And we need more minds to attack these issues of today that come from our people. We can't always depend on someone else's education, someone else's initiative, someone else's intentions when it comes to solving these problems. And so, when it comes to health, when we are having a diabetes issue, high blood pressure issue, and in a way, we as a race gonna have to find the answer to it. We can't really depend on the medical journals, the medical scientists and stuff, who are really, in a way, feeding you the same industries that's giving you the things that's causing you your problems. They support industries like the milk.
I think it starts with our mind, right? Because we're the ones that make these decisions. I'm not the one to say that all Western medicine is bad. I think that you need a little bit of both. You know what I'm saying? Like, as you're using like your Western medicine, you also need to look into more homeopathic or alternative or African medicine. I see people or see different people who go to African priests, for different ailments, and you get certain medicines that come along with your divination and things like that. They also have it in Kemetic philosophy as well. You know what I'm saying? I think that it goes back to slavery, right? When I said something, I said we lost our juju, right? And what I meant by that is like we lost our connection to the earth, like that ability. Like, our great grandparents had the ability to, like, our grandmother can go open the door and put a big foot out and tell whether it's about to rain or not. You know what I'm saying? Our great grandmothers can go out and put their hands in the dirt and tell us whether it's time to grow. You know what I'm saying? Whether the soil's good and da 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 da. Right? We lost a lot of that agricultural sense, right? That connection to the earth, which means we lost our connection to medicines. You know what I'm saying? Like, believe that or not.
Spent a lot of time in doctors' offices and hospitals, especially since my son was born. And even doctors know they don't have the answers. That's the reason why they call it a practice. And if you're going to look at it like somebody else is going to practice, you may as well practice yourself, because you're the one who lives with your body. You're the one who wakes up and feels that tinge in your foot. You're the one who wakes up and feels that ache in your head or whatever. So, like, learning how to kind of, what did I eat last night? Don't eat that. Test with the situation. You had something, kind of think scientifically, use that scientific approach. Like, I got this one variable, let me keep that variable be the variable and other things constant, and see if I can find out, am I allergic to this item that I'm eating, or is this a bad environment where I'm going to? And it's the same process that doctors do. So we have no excuse, but we, like a lot of you guys said, have lost that connection to that information.
Well, not only that, but I think it's a lifestyle as well, because and this goes outside of Western medicine, but just like a Western way of thinking, where we live in a consumer society, right? So a lot of people's approach to eating is, I eat for pleasure, I eat for enjoyment. Whereas, I forget this saying where it's like, they say people from Louisiana, they talk about like the cooking and the food down there. And they say people, outside of Louisiana eat to live, and people down there live to eat. But that's really a mentality that I think a lot of people have just outside of regional, but just in general. Like, a lot of us have been blessed to be afforded a certain lifestyle where we're not really eating for energy or for sustenance. We're just eating because that's what you're supposed to do at that time every day. And it's like, things like portion control, all of those things matter when it comes to, talking about like having a healthy diet and a healthy mental approach towards eating. But I wanted to segue. I wanted to ask y'all, because this is a good time to segue towards how I wanted to know how everybody feels about the vaccine. We've been getting news recently about, the a couple different companies that have successfully completed trials towards a vaccine. It looks like that's going to be becoming available within the next several months.
Okay.
And someone mentioned earlier about our community and how we look at medicine, and just especially us as Black men. Our approach to just going to get a routine physical or going to the dentist for a routine cleaning. Like, our community has a natural distrust of the medical community based on things like the Tuskegee experiment, based on a lot of the things that we've learned were done to slaves in order to advance modern medicine, at the detriment of our people. So, and now a lot of us are fathers and have children, to where, you might be confronted with the prospect of, do I want to have my child given this vaccine just in order to be able to go to school?
Yeah.
What do y'all think about that?
I got something to say about that, right? So
Yeah.
I got kids, right? So first of all, I think that I'll catch it on round 3. Okay. So like
Yeah.
what I meant by that is like, I'll see how it goes. Right. And
Yeah.
I'll catch it on round 3. So like the first round that come out, you ain't gonna catch me on that one. Nor will you catch the second round that come out, but you might catch me on round 3, right?
Yeah.
So I can see how it goes. Like, I mean, because I say that, one, because of the situation I'm in. Like, I work from home, right? I'm not an essential worker. I'm not like out there working, right? At the same time, I'm also very skeptical about vaccines. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean like the basic vaccines that children need to get to go to school. All my children get those. You know what I'm saying? And one, so that the whole community feels safe. We feel safe with everybody else's children. But I also agree, like, for parents who feel like they don't want that, I'm with them. You know what I'm saying? If they feel like, for religious reasons.
This virus is different from any other virus that we've encountered, because when they talk about the, wear a mask, is because you can actually catch this from having interaction with people's moisture from their mouth or from their lungs, their respiratory system. Small medical stuff. The actual virus does not actually affect your respiratory system. It affects your vascular system, which is your blood. So what happens is, this virus is related to SARS-CoV-1. SARS-CoV-1 was what they call SARS, and SARS-CoV-2 is what they call in COVID. SARS-CoV-1 is a virus that only affects your respiratory system, which means when you catch it, it only affects your lungs. So you'll cough, you'll be sick, like you caught a cold or a flu, and it might affect other organs like your kidneys, and that's about as much. So it affects your adrenal glands and it affects your respiratory glands, because of the type of receptor that it has attracts to the type of cells that only live in those areas. The reason why I'm saying that is because this virus, it actually can attract to those same receptors, but that's not where it turns on. I'm trying to avoid using medical terms too much. And so when it actually gets into your blood system, that's actually when it activates. And the reason why I'm saying this, and the reason why it's important that I said this, is because any vaccine that you get for the purpose of helping you with coronavirus, it would have to be able to enter your bloodstream. And your bloodstream actually goes to areas such as your brain, your liver, your kidneys. The reason why people who have COVID are having problems where they need a ventilator is because their body is not allowing enough oxygen to get to their organs. but they're not having a hard time breathing. And so what I'm trying to say is, if you take the vaccine is going to, by nature, have to enter your brain, your kidneys, your liver, all of those same areas that the virus can get when you get infected. And so the problem that I have is that the approach that America has to this virus is the approach that they had to other viruses in the past, where it was, don't worry about catching it. We'll find out how to deal with the population for catching it. They didn't look at it like, how do we literally prevent it? Other countries couldn't survive allowing everybody to catch it or whatever. So they worked harder at quarantining at the beginning and making sure that they had preventative measures. America didn't look at having preventative measures in place. And that's the reason why we're stuck with having to deal with looking at a vaccine. But this is a different type of virus than we've ever seen in humanity as we know it, because it will enter into your lungs, but it won't catch there. It catches on when you have your blood. So I just want to let you guys know that a little bit, because that's something that I think you need to consider, even if you don't know about the virus, even if you trust the doctors, even if you don't trust the doctors, that in order for it to work, you have to allow whatever the substance that they put in that fucking needle is going to have to go through your whole body, essentially. Your pituitary gland, everything. Because this virus, that's the reason why some people are actually getting dementia, Alzheimer's, and all that kind of stuff. So this can actually cause problems down the line. So that's just something I wanted to lay on y'all.
As far as vaccines go, I have an interesting take on it, because I listen to a lot of everything from spiritual teachers to conspiracy theorists. So I take in everything. And at one point I was like against vaccines. I even listened to what Farrakhan said, and a lot of people take what he said and they're changing, like as if he said don't take the vaccine.
Right.
And what he said was, if you do take it, look into it and make sure you know what's in it before you take it. And he said, like you said earlier, our own doctors should be creating vaccines. But the bottom line is so then as I was against vaccines, then I listened to I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Larry Brilliant is. He was like one of the leading doctors who helped eradicate smallpox. And when he tells some of the stories that they went through, like some of the countries that were spreading it out heavily, they would have to go in and raid the villages and force people to take the vaccines. And now, whether we think it was right or wrong, one thing we know for a fact is smallpox is eradicated. That's one thing I can't argue with. I can't. So when he also talks about how also some like the chicken pox. So he says that's foolish. He says that's like I don't. So like even when he talks about it, he says you can't be one sided against it. You can't be totally against it, and you can't, because there's no way they can say they're not harmful. He's like he worked on it, and there's no way he could say it wasn't harmful. But the interesting thing about his story is why I even validate what he says is he had a guru in India, like a real guru, not a Jesus character, an enlightened being, a guru, the character, not the story, but a person who's finished. And when he spoke to these, the guru basically told him that to go to the UNO. And he didn't, long story short, I'm not going to go through it, but he didn't know what for. And in the end, he ended up being a doctor that helped eradicate smallpox from what this guru who knew nothing about nothing told him to go do. He actually got turned away, like, I think 14 times. And the guru kept saying, go back and go be a UNO doctor. And if you look it up, the story's crazy, but he ended up. So how could I deny, the validity? But everybody, even those vaccines, they took 60 years. They used vaccines that were already being made 60 years before, 80 years previous. So they say that it takes that long. Huh?
That's what I want, more time on it. Like, I don't want to take something that they haven't at least seen what the long-term effects are. Like, I don't care about what happens in the next 3 months, year. I want to know over a lifetime, are people going to get where they start? You don't want to have those commercials you looking at TV on Saturday and they be like, did you take the coronavirus vaccine? You might qualify for compensation up to.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, even when that guy, Larry Brilliant, he talks about Bill Gates back in those days when Bill Gates, and I was on the side of Bill Gates is corrupt. He's behind the corruption and all this. But this guy talks about Bill Gates getting involved back then when people were really dying at a crazy rate for real from smallpox. and he said he had so much money that he wanted to be an influence on this. So when I hear that side, I kind of might believe that he might believe that vaccines work or they don't, or I don't know. I don't claim to know the minds of these people, but I know that was when he got involved, and they said that he did it out of a place of having so much money and really wanting to help people to stop dying, especially kids, because a lot of kids were dying. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I'd rather not. I'd rather just keep taking care of myself. But when they're talking about forcing it, like in the smallpox time, we were seeing people die. I've been traveling through this whole coronavirus time. I've been in different countries. I've been in different states while it's going on, and it's the same question everywhere. I'm in the Dominican Republic, and people are asking me, "Is it real there?" Because it's not real here, and we're not seeing people die like that. We're not seeing this go on. We're seeing athletes left and right get pulled out of sports, but not one athlete has ended up in a hospital yet, because it shows that if you have an optimal level of health, you're not going to have the reaction.
I think that COVID exists. At the same time, I think that if we use proper measures and we do what we're been told to do, we'll be okay. I think the folks who can get it the worst are like elderly people with pre-existing conditions, stuff like that. And so, like, we have to look out for the folks who are the least of us, like the folks that can get it, before any of us. We're healthy men, what I'm saying? But that's also not to say that men who are healthy can't get it and be put down for a few weeks too. What I'm saying? So I think that, like Nate was saying before, like, with vaccines, it's interesting because you have to have the disease itself inside of it, although it's like a dead, inactive, whatever, I don't know what you call it, cell or whatever. At the same time, it's there. And it can never guarantee that it is fully 100% like, you know, so like, we have to be careful what vaccines you go for, but the ones that are tested by time that have been, done over and over again, sure. Like,
Yeah, the long term side effects. Not to, but like Nate was saying, I think that's the thing that is the biggest factor determining, at least for me personally, and I think I got that from what you were saying as well. Like, I'm not about to be the first person to rush
Right.
to line up to get the vaccine, but at the same time, I think that makes sense because who should be the first people that would volunteer to get the vaccine? It would be people who are working on the front line, so people in the medical community, people who are elderly, who are more at risk for long-term complications based on getting COVID. And yeah, those people should be the first ones with access to it as well. But the other thing that's scary that I just think about it is, I know that Nate mentioned, like, we've seen athletes test positive for COVID. A lot of what we're still learning about the long-term effects of it is kind of frightening. Where you see people having issues mentally, they're not necessarily physically crippling, but mentally handicapping. Things like dementia and memory loss. So the long-term effect of people's recovery from COVID we're still learning a lot about that. And as far as where our community falls on just vaccines, I think that it's understandable for most of us to have a natural distrust of vaccines just based on history. If you know anything about our history with the medical community, then you know that when it comes, whether you're talking about Black women and their experience with childbirth, or how men, we're reluctant to go for routine physicals or whatever, things like prostate exams and things like that, just based on the bias that exists when it comes to the medical community and how they treat our people. I mean, it's understandable.
I don't believe that it lays down a healthy person. I
Yeah,
haven't seen that person yet. Like I
yeah,
said, not one athlete has been in a hospital yet. Like when you guys say the people that are like most strongly affected by this, that leans me towards this is population control, because the people that are dying and getting taken out by this are, if you were to look at it, the people that don't matter, that we can do without in a society: the sick, the compromised health, the old. So when I hear something like that, it makes me, and I don't want to be the conspiracy theorist, but if it's logical, it's logical. And if those people are the ones dying from it, that makes me think that even more. Because like I said, I haven't seen no athletes in a hospital. I haven't seen them. They don't even look sick, the ones that, and a lot of fighters are coming up with it. So these guys live at an optimal, they have to die a certain way. And I believe the getting hot part, to burn out, a virus can't live at a certain heat. So these
Yeah.
guys are heating up their body to a certain degree every day. So even if they are testing positive, they're getting out at a certain point. And like I said, they're not. And I know people personally who like Nate, you know Marcel.
Yeah.
Marcel had it twice. The first time he had it, because he worked security at a hospital. First time he had it, he wasn't working out, he wasn't eating right. He got real sick. Second time he got it, all he did was he lost his smell and his taste.
Wow.
So and he was taking care of himself the second time around.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this goes back to what I was saying about the black people having a better culture for health. Because if we had a better culture for health, this wouldn't affect us like that. Because the thing that they say are the triggers are diabetes, high blood pressure, and inflammation. And those are the things that are happening. And this goes back, I'm not trying to go into the science of it, but it literally makes you at risk. And those are factors that they don't have to be. You don't have to have diabetes. You don't have to have hypertension and high inflammation. It's because of the diet and
But
environment.
they all disproportionately affect us,
Right.
aside from COVID. And that is mostly because of diet.
Right. So, that's just one thing to think about, man. And so as we grow on, man.